Close your eyes, get comfortable, and come with me. 500 years back, to Venice. It's 1608, a winter evening. You're a married woman in Venice, and you want to go to the theater. But there's a problem. You can't leave your house without wearing a mask. No, this isn't a suggestion. It's a law. It's mandatory. Married women going to the theater must wear masks. Otherwise, punishment. Maybe prison. Maybe public humiliation. But why? Why would a city force its citizens to wear masks? And here's what's even stranger. Why were masks illegal at other times? Tonight I'm going to tell you a story. Not just about masks, but about Venice's rise, power, wealth, and dark secrets. How the world's richest city survived by playing games with identity. How a republic that lasted over 1,000 years hid its truths behind masks. Are you ready? Because Venice is not what it seems. It never was. It all begins with a swamp. 5th century AD. The Roman Empire is collapsing. Barbarian invasions. Chaos. Fear. People living in northern Italy are fleeing, looking for safety, and they find it in the Venetian lagoon, 118 small islands, shallow waters, marshes. But how do you build a city here? The answer is simple but incredible. Wooden stakes. Trees are cut from the forests of Slovenia, Croatia, and Montenegro, transported to Venice, and driven deep into the mud. 1,106,657 wooden stakes, each one 13 feet long, a 2-year project. And here's where the magic happens. The wood underwater, due to lack of oxygen, doesn't rot. Instead, over time, it hardens like stone. It petrifies. Wooden platforms go on top of the stakes. Buildings go on top of the platforms, and so it's born. The strangest city in the world. But why? Why go to all this trouble? Because the swamp is actually protection. Enemies can't easily reach here. Cavalry can't fight here. Feudal lords can't dominate here. Venice is different from the start. No land, so no feudalism, no nobles and serfs. A kind of equality, no agriculture. So everyone's a merchant, everyone's a sailor. And this is what makes Venice special. In 697 AD, the first doge is elected, Orso Ipato Doge, Venice's leader, serving for life. But not an absolute monarch, because real power lies with the Great Council, controlled by Venetian noble families, 20 to 30 families, Contarini, Cornaro, Dandolo, Morosini, Venier. These families will rule Venice for 1,000 years, build a trading empire, and masks will become an important tool in these families' power games. The year 1082, Venice helps the Byzantine Empire against the Normans, fighting in the Adriatic, and Byzantine Emperor Alexios Komnenos, in gratitude, issues a golden decree. Venetian merchants in Byzantine territories, in 23 major ports, can trade completely tax-free. This is an incredible privilege, even in Constantinople. They have their own quarter, their own docks, their own warehouses. Imagine, in the Middle Ages, tax-free trade. This is like, in today's world, Amazon doing business in every country without paying taxes. The Venetians exploit this opportunity to the fullest. Now, close your eyes and imagine the year 1250. A May morning, Venice. You're a merchant from the Contarini family. Your name is Giovanni. You're 35 years old. You own 2 trading ships. You wake before dawn in your palazzo on the Grand Canal. You look out your window. The sun hasn't risen yet, but Venice is already awake. Your servant comes with a basin of water. You wash your face, then you dress. A thick fabric jacket, mink fur collar, velvet trousers, leather boots. You're wealthy, but you don't show off. Not yet, because in Venice, real power is quiet, understated. You go downstairs to the great hall. Your wife and 3 children are there. Breakfast is simple. Bread, cheese, grapes, wine. Yes, morning wine, because water isn't safe. Wine is cleaner after the meal. You board your gondola. You have your own gondola, of course, with 2 oarsmen. The gondola isn't black yet. The 1562 law hasn't been passed. Yours is dark red, gold gilded, your family crest embossed. You enter the Grand Canal, and you see hundreds of gondolas, barges, boats, everyone going somewhere, trading, chasing business. The water traffic is incredible. Sometimes it jams. You have to wait, the Middle Ages traffic jam, and you arrive at the Rialto Bridge. This is Venice's heart. The center of commerce, the bridge isn't stone yet. A wooden bridge, but complex, impressive. On both sides of the bridge are shops, jewelers, fabric merchants, spice sellers. You step off your gondola onto the dock, and the smell hits you, the scent of spices, cinnamon, cloves, ginger, the smell of fish, fresh, salty, the sea, the smell of sweat, hundreds of people. In narrow streets you look around, to the right, the fish dock, freshly caught fish being sold, sea bream, sea bass, squid. To the left, the vegetable market, eggplant, zucchini, no tomatoes yet. They haven't come from America. Ahead, the fabric bazaar, silk, velvet, linen, wool, and people. People from everywhere. Greek merchants, long beards, wide trousers, Arab merchants, white turbans, ornate robes, Jewish bankers, required to wear yellow badges. Discrimination, but still trading. German merchants, coming from the Fondaco dei Tedeschi, the German house. They stay there. Under control, even Indian merchants, bringing spices. From distant lands, you walk to San Giacomo Square. There's a giant clock tower there, showing the time precisely because in Venice, time is money. Auctions conducted by candlelight. When the candle burns out, business ends, debt payment dates are fixed. Spice ships return on specific dates. If you're late, you're ruined in the square. Bankers sit behind long benches. That's why they're called banks. They speak in low voices. No shouting, no arguing. As befits Venice's honor. Quiet, serious, professional. You sit down next to a banker. You already know each other. Buongiorno Giovanni, he says. Buongiorno Marco, you say. And you talk. In low voices, news from your agent in Alexandria. The spice ship has set sail. It'll return in 2 months. You need financing for a new voyage to India, the banker calculates. Writing in leather ledgers. Old currency, new currency, gold ducat, silver grosso. Venice's monetary system is complex. But bankers are experts. You reach an agreement. The banker will provide 1/3 of the capital. You'll provide 2/3. An agent will sail with the ship, buy spices, bring them back, profit, split equally, risk, divided among the 3 of you. If the ship sinks, each of you loses a portion. If the ship returns, each of you gets rich. This system, colleganza, Venice's invention, used here in Europe for the first time. Why is it important? Because it teaches risk management. A merchant doesn't put all his money in one ship. Small amounts in 5 different ships. Diversification. If one ship sinks, the other 4 save you. Modern finance is born here, on Venice's docks. In the 13th century, after your business, you board your gondola again. This time, you're going east, to the arsenal. The arsenal, source of Venice's power, state-owned shipyard. The world's largest. When you arrive at the arsenal gate, your jaw drops. Every single time. Giant gate, stone lions on both sides. Stolen from Greece, you enter, and you witness 16,000 workers, working 10 hours a day. Carpenters, blacksmiths, sailmakers, rope makers over in one corner. Keels being made, the skeleton parts of ships there. Planks being fitted, wooden boards being nailed. Over here, sails being sewn. Enormous, white, to catch the wind. On the other side, iron being cast, anchors, chains, weapons. The coordination is perfect. Like an orchestra, and the speed, incredible speed. The arsenal can produce a ship in 1 full day. They start in the morning, finish in the evening, warship, ready to sail the ocean. This, in the 13th century, unbelievable, historians say. The arsenal is the world's first factory. Mass production, standardization, division of labor. It all starts here, 600 years before Henry Ford's assembly line, thanks to the arsenal. Venice can produce 3,300 ships, train 36,000 sailors, control the Mediterranean, monopolize Eastern trade. Wealth comes from here, from this shipyard, from these workers. The year 1254, not far from the arsenal. In a mansion, a baby is born. His name, Marco. Marco Polo, his father and uncle, merchants. Traveling to the east, when Marco grows up, he'll go with them. 24 years, he'll stay far away. narrates slowly. In 1271, at 17 years old, Marco sets out with his father Niccolo and uncle Maffeo. They go Constantinople, Baghdad, Tehran, the Silk Road, the Mongol Empire, Kublai Khan's palace, China, India, Burma. 24 years later, in 1295, he returns to Venice, and nobody believes what he tells them. Marco tells them China has paper money, more practical than metal coins. Venetians laugh. Paper money? Ridiculous. Marco tells them the Mongols have established a postal system. They carry messages by changing horses. Venetians look skeptically. They don't believe it. Marco tells them there are cities in China 10 times bigger than Venice. Venetians mock him. Marco's lying, they say. But Marco is consistent, detailed. He writes a book, Adi Million, the book of millions, and slowly people start believing because the trade routes Marco described are real. The spices he mentioned actually exist. They're coming to Venice. His maps, accurate. Marco Polo will inspire Christopher Columbus. The idea of discovering new worlds comes from Marco's book, and it all starts from Venice, from this city. By the end of the 13th century, Venice, Europe's richest city, richer than London, richer than Paris, richer than Rome, and this wealth wants to be shown along the Grand Canal. Palazzos are rising, Cadoro, the Golden House. Its facade is actually covered in gold leaf. Carezonico, enormous, 5 floors, marble stairs, frescoed ceilings, Cadoro. Every window a work of art, Gothic arches, carved stone. These palaces aren't just homes, they're power statements. The Contarini family says, "Our palazzo is the biggest." The Dandolo family responds, "No, ours is more magnificent." The Morosini family builds an even better one. Competition, never ending. But Venice's wealth doesn't just come from shipping, it comes from production too. Murano Island, 10 minutes by gondola from Venice. Here, a magic is being created. Glass. In 1291, the Venetian government decides all glass workshops will move to Murano. Why? Fire risk. But the real reason? Secret control. In Murano, glassmakers develop their techniques, crystal clear glass, colored glass, mirrors, chandeliers, and Venice takes harsh measures to protect this secret. Glassmakers cannot leave the island, cannot teach their techniques to others. If they try to escape, their families are taken hostage. They're found killed. Harsh but effective. Murano glass becomes the world's most valuable glass. Kings, popes, sultans all order glass from Murano. Murano Island, further away, famous for its colorful houses. Here, women weave lace, delicate, intricate. Hours of work, a lace tablecloth, can take months, and its value enormous. As valuable as gold. Europe's queens wear Burano lace. Weddings are decorated with Burano lace. Venice is not just a merchant, but an artisan too. Now, before we drift completely into sleep, let me tell you something. In Venice, masks weren't just pieces of leather and paint. They were a language, a complex system of communication. Every Venetian knew how to read this language. Like reading faces today. One glance at a mask, and you knew who was behind it. Or at least, what they wanted you to think. Let me teach you this forgotten language, the language of masks. First, understand this. In medieval and Renaissance Venice, social class was everything. You were born into a class, and you stayed there for life. At the top, the patricians, the noble families, about 2,000 people. These were the families in the Golden Book. Libro d'Oro, Contarini, Dandolo, Morosini, Gradenigo, Falier. They alone could hold political office. They alone voted in the Great Council. Below them, the cittadini, the citizens. Maybe 30,000 people. These were the wealthy merchants, the lawyers, the doctors, the bureaucrats, not noble by birth, but important, powerful, rich. They couldn't be doge, but they ran the ministries, managed the trade, controlled the money. Below them, the popolani, the common people, 100,000 or more, artisans, sailors, fishermen, servants, gondoliers. They did the work, built the ships, rowed the boats, made the city function, and at the very bottom, the forestieri, The foreigners, Greeks, Turks, Germans, Jews, Arabs, necessary for trade, but never truly Venetian. Now here's the problem, these classes were supposed to stay separate. Noble shouldn't mingle with a servant, age citizen shouldn't be mistaken for a noble, the foreigner shouldn't pretend to be Venetian, but Venice was crowded, chaotic. The classes mixed on narrow streets, in markets, in churches. How do you maintain order when everyone's shoulder to shoulder? Sumptuary laws, laws about what you can wear. Nobles wore ermine fur, white, expensive. Citizens wore black, dignified, but not ostentatious. Common people wore brown or gray, cheap wool, rough linen. Foreigners, well, they had special requirements. Jews had to wear yellow badges, later yellow hats, so everyone could identify them immediately. But then came masks, and suddenly, these careful distinctions blurred. The botta was the most revolutionary mask because it erased class when you wore a botta. With its white angular face, its black tabaro cloak, its tricorn hat, nobody could tell if you were a doge or a dock worker. The outfit was standardized, the same for everyone. A patrician wearing a botta looked identical to a cittadini wearing a bauda. This drove the authorities crazy, because social control depends on visibility. The government needed to know who was who but masked. Everyone was anonymous, equal. A noble could walk beside a commoner and not know it. A servant could sit in a cafe beside a senator, and nobody would object. Stories tell of dotes walking incognito through the city, wearing baudas, to hear what people really thought. One doge, Francesco Morosini, it's said, loved to gamble in low taverns, wearing his botta, playing dice with sailors and fishermen. They never knew. They were losing money to the ruler of Venice, but it also worked the other way. Servants could dress as nobles, as long as they had a mask, enter noble gatherings, masked balls, restricted areas, as long as you wore the right mask. Nobody questioned you. This terrified the patrician class. The volto, the face, was simpler, a white full-face mask, tied with ribbons, often worn with a simple cloak, not as formal as the bauta. This was the mask of discretion. You wore a volto when you needed to be seen, but not recognized, going to a business meeting, but don't want competitors to know, attending church, but you have enemies there, walking through your neighborhood, but you're having an affair. The volto said, I'm here, but please, don't ask who I am. It was polite anonymity. And here's what's interesting. In Venetian society, it was considered rude to ask a masked person to reveal themselves. If someone wore a mask, you respected it. You conducted your business, made your conversation, all while pretending not to care about identity. This was the Venetian code: privacy, discretion, mutual anonymity. Now we come to something quite unusual: the gnaga, a cat mask, usually worn by men, dressed as women. Yes, cross-dressing. In medieval Venice, common during carnival, the naga represented the female cat, meowing and screeching. Men wearing it would speak in falsetto, imitate women's voices, act feminine. At first, this seems like simple carnival fun, but it was more. In Venice's rigid society, gender roles were strict. Men were men, women were women, no crossing. But during carnival, with masks, these rules suspended. Men could explore femininity. Without shame, women could dress in masculine clothes, be bold, be forward. The naga specifically let men mock femininity, but also experience it. What does this tell us? That even in the 1400s and 1500s, people understood gender is partly performance, that masculine and feminine are roles we play, and masks let you play different roles, safely, temporarily. Now, let's talk about the Moretta again. More deeply, this black oval mask, worn only by women. But remember, it had no straps. Women held it in place by biting a button on the inside, which meant they couldn't speak at first glance. This seems elegant. The mute servant mask, silent and mysterious. Noble women loved it for its mystique. But think about it. Really think, a mask specifically designed to silence women. In Venetian society, women were already restricted. Noble women especially, confined to homes and convents. They couldn't participate in government, couldn't own businesses, couldn't speak in public forums, their marriages arranged, their lives controlled by fathers and husbands. And now, Even their masks enforce silence. But here's the twist. Some women chose this mask deliberately because while they couldn't speak, they could listen. And in Venice, information was power. A silent woman at a party heard everything. Men spoke freely, thinking she couldn't respond, couldn't betray their secrets, but she remembered everything. And later, without the mask, she could use that information. So the Moretta was both oppression and strategy, a symbol of women's silencing and women's intelligence. Like everything in Venice, it had two faces. Now, let's talk about what the church thought about all these masks, because the Catholic Church was everywhere in Venice. Every neighborhood had churches, convents, monasteries. Priests watched, judged, condemned, and they hated masks. The church believed your face was God's creation. To hide it was to reject God's design. To wear a mask was to lie about who you were, and lying was a sin, but it was deeper than that. The church knew masks enabled behaviors they opposed. Gambling, forbidden by the church. But masked people gambled freely. Prostitution, a sin. But masked clients visited brothels openly. Adultery, a mortal sin. But masked lovers met secretly. Gluttony, excess, pride, all 7 deadly sins. Easier to commit behind a mask, so the church preached against masks. From every pulpit, priests gave sermons. Remove your masks. Face God honestly, confessors asked. Have you worn a mask? For what purpose? The faithful were warned. Masks were tools of the devil, but, and this is important, the church couldn't ban them, because Venice, unlike other Italian cities, kept church power in check. The government was secular, run by merchants, not bishops, and the merchants loved masks because masks enabled the freedom that brought them money. So the church complained, but couldn't enforce. Priests railed against masks, but nobles ignored them. This tension between religious morality and secular freedom defined Venetian culture. There's another mask we haven't discussed. The larva, its name means ghost or mask in Latin. It was white, sometimes gilded, covering only the upper face, worn with a tricorn hat, and black cape. What it represented, the larva was the mask of respectability. You wore it to official functions. While still maintaining anonymity, it said, I am someone important, but I choose not to reveal myself. Interestingly, some religious processions allowed the larva during Holy Week. Wealthy patrons wore larvas. While donating to the poor, this way, they followed Jesus' teaching. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand does. Charity and anonymity. The church couldn't object. It was biblical, but of course, after the religious procession, the same people, wearing the same masks, went to gambling houses, brothels, forbidden theaters. The mask didn't change, only its meaning. Pious in the morning, sinful at night. Now, let's talk about what everyone really cared about. Love, romance, seduction. Because in Venice, masks were essential to matters of the heart, you see. In noble families, marriage was business. Families arranged unions to strengthen alliances, increase wealth, secure power. Love was not a consideration. A patrician daughter might be married at 14 to a man she'd never met, who was 50. A noble son might be betrothed to his cousin. For political reasons, these marriages were transactions, but people still wanted love, wanted passion, wanted choice, and masks provided that. In Venice, there was an institution, the Cavalier Servente, the serving knight, or Cisisbeo. This was an officially recognized lover. A married woman could have a Cavalier Servente. With her husband's knowledge, he would escort her to theaters, to parties, to church. He would give her gifts, write her poetry, declare his love, and everyone knew, everyone accepted, but discretion was required. The Cisisbeo often wore a mask. When visiting his lady, she might wear a mask. When they walked together this way, her reputation stayed intact, her husband's honor preserved. But love found a way at masked balls. The greatest love affairs began because you couldn't see faces. You couldn't judge by appearance, by class, by age. You talked, you danced, you felt. Maybe you fell in love with a voice, a laugh, a way of moving, and only later, When masks came off, did you learn who they really were? The Ridotto, Venice's most famous casino, opened in 1638. Government sanctioned, highly exclusive. Here's where nobles came to gamble away fortunes, but also to meet lovers. Imagine a palace, candlelit, music playing softly, gaming tables set up, cards, dice, roulette, everyone masked. Men and women both, you couldn't tell. Married from unmarried, noble from citizen. How it worked. A masked man approaches a masked woman. They talk, flirt, play cards together. Maybe he wins. Impresses her with his luck. Maybe she wins. Impresses him with her skill. They drink wine. They laugh, and then they slip away to private rooms upstairs. Next day, at church, she sees him without his mask. He's a senator, her father's colleague, or worse, her husband's friend. But neither says anything. Because of the code, what happened behind masks stayed behind masks, but masks and love could be dangerous because anonymity can enable violence, betrayal, heartbreak. Stories tell of a young woman seduced at a ball by a masked man who promised marriage. She met him repeatedly, always masked, for months until she became pregnant. Then she demanded he reveal himself and marry her. He removed his mask, and she saw he was already married to her sister, or the tale of two enemies, political rivals who unknowingly fell in love at a masked ball, wrote passionate letters, planned to elope. When they finally met unmasked, they nearly drew swords. Such was their hatred. But love had happened, real love. Behind the masks, what do you do when you love your enemy? Many love affairs ended in tragedy, duels fought over masked mistresses and poison administered by jealous lovers, women confined to convents for masked indiscretions, men exiled for seducing married women, because Venice, for all its freedom, still punished. When you broke the rules, now we must discuss the shadow side, because wherever there's anonymity, there's crime, and Venice, behind its beautiful masks, hid countless crimes. But every story has a dark side. Venice has one too, because these masks, this freedom, this wealth all come at a price, slowly in detail. The Venetian Republic appears to be a free state, but in reality, under tight control. There's the Council of 10, Consiglio dei Dieci, a secret committee of 10 people. This committee has incredible power. They have spies everywhere. In the streets, in the taverns, in the palaces. Venetians inform on each other. Did you see something suspicious? Leave a note in the lions' mouths at the Doge's palace. Anonymous denunciations, secret arrests, silent trials, and there's torture. In the basements of the Doge's palace, lead cells, the Piombi on the top floor, covered with lead sheets, very hot in summer, freezing in winter. Prisoners rot there. The famous escape artist Casanova will escape from here in 1755. The only person, Venice, is both free and imprisoned. Masks give freedom, but the state knows everything. People live as they please, but when they cross the line, punishment is severe. And in the 16th century, masks are getting out of control because the elite class goes too far with masks. Imagine, you're a Venetian noble. In the 1570s, your family is wealthy. You have trading ships. You have a palace. But you're bored. Every day the same people. Same meetings, same rules. One evening, you put on your mask and you go outside. You're not yourself anymore. You're someone else. You enter a gambling house. It's forbidden, but nobody cares. You talk to a prostitute. Scandalous, but nobody knows. You get into a fight. Dangerous, but your identity is hidden. This freedom changes people. Some use it for good. Have fun. Relax. Some use it for evil. Commit crimes, 'cause harm. And the Venetian government can't take it anymore. In 1608, the Council of 10 strikes the final blow. New law. Definitive. Clear. Undebatable. Masks can only be worn during Carnival, from Christmas to Lent. 3 months, other times, forbidden. Punishment, very harsh. 2 years in prison. Public flogging. Being tied to the pillar of shame. Humiliation in front of thousands of people. Venice isn't joking anymore. But of course, people still wear masks because in Venice, rules are always flexible. If you don't get caught, no problem. The cursed palace Cadario, and speaking of Venice's dark side, there's a palace, Cadario. Palazzo Dario, located on the Grand Canal. Beautiful, Gothic architecture, colorful marble, but it has a nickname. The cursed palace, since its construction in 1487. Everyone who owns or stays in this palace either dies or goes bankrupt. The curse can be tracked from 1487 to 2002. Giovanni Dario, the builder, his daughter dies young, her husband, murdered. Every owner after that meets a terrible fate: suicide, incurable disease, car accidents, murder. In 1993, the last owner dies for 12 years. Nobody dares to buy it. Finally, in 2005, an American company makes an offer. On behalf of an unknown buyer, the palace is currently being restored. But the curse, people say it still exists. Walk past Cadario at night, and you'll feel it. Something's not right. Venetians know. Some palaces have dark histories, just like some masks. Hide dark secrets. Venice has different mask types. Each has a meaning, a function. Let me describe them for you. As you drift off to sleep, bauta bauta. The most common mask, white, angular, square mouth. Both men and women wear it. With this mask, you can eat, drink, talk, but your identity stays hidden. Perfect, practical, effective. The bauta also comes with a black cloak, called a tabaro, and a tricorn hat. Three-pointed, complete disguise, complete anonymity. This is the mask you'd wear if you were a Venetian noble, going to a secret meeting, or visiting a place you shouldn't be. Moretta, the silent mask, black, oval, for women only, but it has a feature. No straps inside. How do women wear it? By biting a button. That's why they can't speak. They stay silent. This mask's name, the mute servant, because women wearing it can't talk, only listen. Ideal for men. Unfortunately, this mask represents the silent subjugation of women. In a society ruled by men, even in Venice, with all its freedom, women have limitations. Medico della peste, medico della peste. The plague doctor mask, long beak nose, glass-covered eyes. Terrifying appearance. This mask is actually used to treat patients. They stuff the beak with scented herbs, lavender, mint, to block the smell of plague patients. The glasses provide protection, primitive but effective. This mask today became popular again during COVID. Ironic, isn't it? Volto volto, full face mask, white, simple, elegant. Carnival's classic mask. With this they dance, go to balls, have romantic meetings, and the famous Venetian tradition, if you kiss while the gondola passes under a bridge, you'll stay in love forever. But of course, when you're masked, you don't know who you're kissing. Maybe your lover, maybe someone else. Who knows? By the time we reach the 1700s, masks are no longer just for fun. They become social signals. If married women go to the theater, they must wear a mask, mandatory. Why? To show modesty, to indicate they're married. Now the mask doesn't seduce, it protects. Strange, isn't it? The same object, different meanings. The mandatory mask law, remember how we started? 1608, a married woman going to the theater must wear a mask. Now you understand why. Because in Venice, masks have multiple meanings. Sometimes they hide, sometimes they reveal, sometimes they liberate, sometimes they oppress. The same mask can mean freedom for one person and captivity for another. This is Venice's genius. And its tragedy. Everything has two faces. Like a mask, the richest city, with the darkest secrets, the freest republic, with the strictest control, the most beautiful art. Built on stolen wealth, Venice is a city of contradictions, and masks are the perfect symbol. The year 1797, Napoleon conquers Venice. The 100-year-old republic ends, and the golden age of masks also ends. The French abolish mask laws, ban the carnival. Venice is now a different city. Slow, thoughtful. But do masks really disappear? No, never. Because Venice was always the city of masks, not just on your face, but in your heart too. The last Doge. When Napoleon's troops enter Venice, the last Doge, Ludovico Manin, takes off his ceremonial cap. Take this, he says. I won't be needing it anymore. He hands over the keys to the city, removes his mask of power, and becomes just a man. The great council gathers for the last time. The families that ruled for 1,000 years. Contarini, Dandolo, Morosini. All there, they vote. To dissolve the Republic, the vote passes by a narrow margin, and just like that, 100 years. And the Lion of St. Mark lowers its head, the masks come off, philosophical. But here's the interesting thing. When real power ends, masks become unnecessary because masks only have meaning when there's something to hide. When there's nothing left to hide, masks become just decoration. Venice today. If you walk through Venice, on narrow streets, over bridges, along canals, you still see masks everywhere, sold to tourists, hanging on walls, shining in shop windows. But the real masks are in places you don't see, on people's faces, in their smiles, in their gazes, because everyone has a mask, everywhere. Always. Venice just had the courage to admit it. Venice teaches us that sometimes hiding your identity brings freedom. Sometimes not being yourself helps you find yourself. Sometimes a mask is more honest than your real face. Because when you wear a mask, you're free from society's expectations. You don't hear the voices of those telling you who you should be. You just become yourself, without anyone knowing who you are. Venice understood something that most cities never did. Identity is fluid, changeable, multiple. You're not just one person. You're many people. The person at work, the person at home, and the person in your dreams. The mask simply makes this visible, makes it acceptable, makes it beautiful. And now you can take a comfortable breath, your eyes closed, your body relaxed. You might feel like you're lost in Venice's narrow streets. A gondola passes. The sound of water under a bridge, slowly, and you are drifting off to sleep. Venice still stands on those wooden stakes, driven in Washington 600 years ago, still sinking, 1 to 2 millimeters per year, still flooding, with Acqua Alta still surviving, despite everything, because Venice is not just a city, it's an idea, a dream, a mask, some say. Venice looks like a fish from above, born from water, will return to water, but until that day comes, it will continue to stand, with its secrets, with its masks, with its beauty, and every visitor who walks these streets will feel it, that strange sensation of being somewhere that's not quite real, a floating city on impossible foundations, a republic that shouldn't have lasted, but lasted 1,000 years, a place where masks were mandatory and forbidden, and everywhere, very slow, almost whispering. Tonight, you learned about Venice, the richest city, that rose from a swamp, the masked society, that hid and revealed itself, the trading empire, that brought East and West together. And now, it's time to rest. Let the canals carry you away. Let the gondolas rock you gently. Let the masks protect your dreams, maskless, free, peaceful. Good night, buonanotte, and may you dream of floating cities and hidden identities and golden ages long past.